In theory, it's great. You have a vast medium that, with a few exceptions, isn't regulated by the government, where people can create an account of their choosing, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, post their opinion, share their ideas, and respond to other people's opinions. But then one day, it hits you. You're scrolling through your newsfeed and you see it. 5 of your friends have shared a link. This is a great example of a trend which has been referred to as the fragmentation of the cyberpublic, the creation of echo chambers, or the development of the daily me. With the rise in popularity of social media in the past decade, communication scholars have produced a lot of research about the potential of the internet to facilitate the public sphere. But what is the public sphere, you might ask? According to Lincoln Dahlberg, the Habermasian public sphere is based on the thematization and critique of moral, ethical, and pragmatic validity claims, accompanied by inclusive, sincere, and respectful reasoning. This sphere is seen to be central to strong democracy, enabling the voices of diverse views on any issue, the constitution of publicly oriented citizens, the scrutiny of power, and ultimately, public sovereignty. At this point, you're probably wondering, where am I going with this? So let's start back from the beginning. Technology, by its very nature, was designed as a web that would connect us to new things, new ideas, new people, new points of view. But as Dana Boyd points out, this isn't always the case. She says, technology's majestic luster makes it easy to fool people into believing that its structure determines its practice. According to Boyd, over the past decade, the predominant forms of social media have shifted from topically organized chat rooms and forums to personally structured networks of friends. From here, Boyd concludes that on social networking sites, people are only exposed to the things that their friends choose to share. If that content is valued, it is spread further through friend networks. A lack of shared interest results in a lack of spreadability. This structure creates the phenomenon demonstrated earlier in the video, the formation of cavernous echo chambers. Essentially, what's happening here is that through new media, the massive potential the internet once held to facilitate the public sphere is being voided by the creation of personalized news feeds. I Google Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube. These are all forms of new media that allow the user to subscribe to users who post content that reinforces their worldview. Moreover, some of these websites will often recommend other content for you based on your previous views. But it's not just social networking sites that are creating these echo chambers. Nicholas Negroponte, who popularized the idea of the daily me, was the first person to suggest that digitization would result in the user playing a bigger role in news selection. Not only are websites such as iGoogle and MyYahoo making it easier for us to create personalized news feeds, but traditional news providers are also jumping on the bandwagon, often sending users RSS feeds specific to their interest right to their computer or mobile device. A lot of traditional news providers are also using social plugins, which suggest articles to you that your friends have shared on their Facebook. These trends can be broken down into what is called implicit and explicit personalization. If you tell a website or an app things that interest you or people whose posts you want to receive, this is called explicit personalization. We are literally creating our own personalized news feeds with information that reinforces ideas and beliefs we already hold. Things get a little more complicated when we examine implicit personalization. This is when search engines, or news outlets, literally cater your search results or homepages based on websites or articles that you have read in the past. Basically, without you even realizing it, search engines and other websites are feeding you information that you already agree with. Which leads to the question, what are you missing out on? Whether it's implicit or explicit, personalization of new media is definitely giving the democratic nature of the internet a run for its money. The internet does feature copious amounts of debate. However, it is often incredibly disrespectful and mindless criticism, a theme explored by Dr. Strangelove. He explains that because of perceived levels of anonymity, individuals are more likely to unabashedly slander or insult their peers. On the other hand, respectful debate is often merely between like-minded individuals already belonging to the same group. So, if the internet is supposed to be an extension of the public sphere, shouldn't it be providing us with a little more substantial debate? Lincoln Dalberg notes that a number of internet democracy commentators question whether the myriad of diverse views that exist online intersect, and the extent to which online interactions actually involve any significant problematization and contestation of positions and practices. The creation of personalized news feeds and echo chambers is what prevents these views from intersecting. Sunstein believes that personalization creates echo chambers, but also that the internet has subsequently become a breeding ground for group polarization and extremism. He alleges that this is due to the nature of deliberation between people who share a similar worldview. After deliberation, people are more likely to move towards an extreme point in the direction to which the group's members were already inclined. He explains that this creates an increased polarization, which increases incidents of hostility, intolerance, and even violence. This hostility can occur both online and offline and lead to social destabilization. Peter Dahlgren also explores this phenomenon using the concept of cyber ghettos, wherein groups are fragmented and isolated, often in ways that undermine the integrative social function of the public sphere. But Sunstein and Dahlgren don't have all the answers I'm looking for. Dahlgren explains that without some sort of cohesive structural connection, disengagement and cynicism might slip in. To prevent such a spiral, Sunstein advocates for the use of general interest intermediaries in order to support the development of shared public meanings. However, critical theorists such as Lincoln Dalberg point out that just as with traditional media, these intermediaries online recreate dominant systems of meaning and power. Dalberg's argument is that powerful corporations supported by neoliberal policies are recreating and reinforcing, through the internet, the dominant discourses and practices of consumer capitalism, marginalizing critical communication, which is central to strong democratic culture. Combined, the intensive personalization of our internet usage and the presence of corporations infiltrating our allegedly unfettered democratic discourse is a bizarre combination of fragmentation and homogenization. You might be thinking, well, this is nothing new. Before the web, people could just select their news in person, opting for the Toronto Sun over the Toronto Star, or BBC over CNN. But now it's better, because we can not only make these decisions between corporate media gatekeepers online, but we can also create our own content, be our own gatekeeper. But I would urge you to think again. Eli Pariser addresses these ideals in his TED Talk about filter bubbles. According to Pariser, traditional media gatekeepers developed media ethics and journalistic practices, guidelines which weren't perfect, but did provide a diversity of information. But now, we have computer algorithms acting as gatekeepers, algorithms that predominantly create filters based on our immediate and often impulsive wants and needs, usually sorting information by relevance based on the type of things we click on first and most often. This is the implicit personalization discussed earlier. Pariser argues that if we are going to continue to trust algorithms to be our gatekeeper, then they need to also expose us to links that are important, challenging, uncomfortable, and feature different points of view. Neil Thurman attempts to highlight the gatekeeping effects of processes of implicit personalization, but asserts that further study is absolutely necessary considering that these mechanisms are often difficult to detect because they operate without the user knowing and often outside of the direct control of the news sites that host the service. In addition to the mass amount of interest news sites have expressed in further developing implicit personalization. That's right. This is a trend that's on the rise. The incredible potential we once saw in the internet is slowly dwindling due to the commercialization of new media. In media studies, there are generally two sides of the coin, explains Dr. Strangelove. Utopian analysis that equate new media with democracy, and normative analysis, which asserts that the internet will eventually fall prey to marketplace capitalism. While this video has more so highlighted the reasoning behind normative analysis, this does not mean that there's not hope for new media to be harnessed for the greater good of civic engagement in the public sphere. As Richard Harwood suggests, there is hope, but it will require effort. We must make a fundamental shift from simply finding new ways of aggregating information to generating a true public knowledge rooted in fundamentally different notions of what it means to know a community. In addition to the public making an effort to change our uses of the internet, we must also pressure the companies that host and run our beloved websites for greater transparency and a greater say in the criteria of our information filters.